Hello, Mednologist. You're watching Scientific Medical Nosologist YouTube channel. So, in this particular video, we're going to discuss about all of these MCQs. So, let's start the video. So, our first question is, which of the following best describes the pathophysiology of asthma? And your options are, first one, that is permanent discretion of alveoli valves. Second option is chronic inflammation and hyper-responsiveness of airways, that is bronchi. Third option is accumulations of fluid in the alveoli. Fourth option is bacterial infections of bronchial tubules. So, the right answer is second option, that is chronic inflammation and hyper-responsiveness of airways. So before describing pathophysiology of asthma, so now let's discuss the complete information about the asthma. Okay. So what is asthma? Asthma is a chronic lung infection characterized by allergic inflammation and narrowing of the airways, which can lead to first one, wheezing, shortness of breath, chest tightness, and other asthmatic symptoms. Permanent destruction of alveoli valves happens in emphysema, not in asthma. Okay. So this is not right options. But third option is accumulations of fluid in alveoli. That is nothing but pulmonary edema. So which is not related to asthma. In asthma, there is no accumulations of fluids. So the fourth option is bacterial infections of bronchial tubules. That is nothing but bacterial bronchitis. Asthma is not an bacterial infection. So it's not a right answer. So the right answer is chronic inflammation and hyperexpansiveness of airways. So this is the right option, which characterize the pathophysiology of asthma. Always remember topics in easy way. So I will extend pathophysiology. That is what all major things happens in asthma in point wise. So first point is that inflammations of the airways or bronchi. So due to inflammation, there is a swelling of the airways due to inflammatory response caused by irritants. So you can say first point is inflammation and swelling of the bronchi. Second point is contractions of smooth muscles surrounding the bronchi. So due to release of inflammatory factors like leukotriene, which is an inflammatory factor which is released due to irritants. Due to release of inflammatory factors, the smooth muscle surrounding the airways gets contracted, further narrowing the airways. Third point is increased mucus production, further narrowing of the airways. So three major things happens. That is first one, inflammation, and that point. Second point is contractions of smooth muscle surrounding the airways, that is bronchi. And third point is increased mucus production, increased thick mucus production. So thick mucus production can increase the narrowing of the airways. So finally, these all points can increase the narrowing of the airways, which can cause shortness of breathing or wheezing. So this is the characteristics, features of asthma. So these all symptoms can narrow the airways, which can cause the obstacles during the airflow, or which can block the airflow. That is called as asthma attack. So to relieve from this is that asthmatic attacks, we need to use short-term beta agonists, which are effective only for short term and gives immediate relief and acts as a lifesaver drug during asthmatic attacks. There will be given a rescue inhalers, which consist of short-acting beta agonists, which acts on the smooth muscles and cause the relaxations of the smooth muscles surrounding the airways, which can lead to bronchodilation, allowing the airflow more easily and freely. This short-acting beta agonist also decreases the thickness of the mucus. Due to short-acting beta agonist drugs, there will be the production of thin mucus, which can further cause the widening of the airways, that is bronchodilation. So these drugs works immediately within a minute, acting as a rescue drugs against the asthma attacks. These drugs works by binding to beta receptors from the airways. These drugs also increases the ciliary frequency. Cilia is a thin hair-like structure present in innermost layer of the airways. With the help of mucus, it traps the dust particles, any foreign particles from the environment, and passes it through a ciliary movement into to upper throat in such a way that a person can easily exit out that foreign particles with the help of sneezing and coughing. So this is a normal mechanism. What happens? So due to this drug, this normal mechanism increases so that the dust particles or mucus which is trapped in the airways can be splitted out, which can cause widening of the airways and advocate airflow. So this is how these drugs works. So now let's discuss about the types of asthma. Mainly there are two types of asthma based on causes, whether they are external or internal. That is first one, extrinsic asthma, and second one, intrinsic asthma. So in extrinsic asthma, there will be an external cause for asthma like irritants. Extrinsic asthma is also called as allergic asthma, which is caused by external factors or environmental factors like pollen grains, dust mites, pet dendrites, and all other environmental allergens or irritants which can cause the asthma. Actually, asthma is a genetic disorder. So the person who has a family history of asthma exposures to the allergens or irritant present in environment can cause asthma. Also, due to some genetic factors, some people will be excessively allergic to these irritants, which can lead to asthma. Intestinal asthma consists of internal causes, internal factors such as respiratory infections, excessive smoking, cold air, stress, and all other internal factors can cause asthma. Like excessive smoking can also cause the asthma. So, till we further discuss the three major things about the asthma, and we discuss the types of asthma. Okay, so this is all over the asthma and the types and over short-acting beta agonists. So now let's move to the next question, that is, which of the following is a common symptom of asthma? First option is chest pain, second option is wheezing, third option is fever, fourth option is finger clubbing. So the right answer is wheezing. Wheezing is a high-pitched whistling sound during breathing, which is caused due to narrowing of the airways. Wheezing is a hallmark symptom of asthma. So wheezing happens as the air is forced through a narrowing airways due to increased resistance of the airflow. High-pitched sound is produced, which we call wheezing. So I brought an audio of wheezing and coughing, which describes the best about the asthmatic hallmark symptom, that is wheezing. So you can listen here.
You pick up प्रॉब्लम है आप क्या कर.
So this is how wheezing looks. So this is how wheezing can be heard, while chest pain and fever and finger clubbing is not directly associated with the asthma. So now let's move to the next question, that is, what is the primary mechanism of inhaled corticosteroids in asthma management? And your options are: first one, bronchodilation, is airway inflammation, stimulating mucus production, increasing airway resistance. And the right answer is reducing airway inflammation. As you know, corticosteroids are anti-inflammatory drugs. By keeping this in mind, you can directly choose the option which consists of inflammation word. As bronchodilation is caused by short-acting beta-adrenergic drugs, which I was discussed at the beginning of this video, that the short-acting beta-agonist and long-acting beta-agonists causes the bronchodilation. So in this question, they are asking about the inhaled corticosteroids. Corticosteroids are anti-inflammatory drugs, so we choose the right option, that is reducing airway inflammation. So now let's move to the next question, is which of the following is not a common trigger for asthma? That is, first one, dust mites, second one, exercise, third one, pet dander, fourth one, hypertension. As you already studied that asthma is an allergic condition which is caused by dust, but what about exercise? Can exercise induce asthma? Yes, exercise can induce asthma, which is called as exercise-induced asthma, which can lead to asthma attack. So the asthmatic patients cannot exercise regularly and cannot increase their metabolic activity. So because during increased metabolic activity or excessive exercise can cause increased respiration rate and increased airflow to the lungs, which can lead to cooling and drying of the airways, especially if there is a cold air present in their environment, which can further increase this risk. So due to cooling and drying of the airways, due to loss of heat and moisture in the airways, which can cause irritation to the airways, leading to inflammatory response and contractions of the smooth muscles, which can cause bronchoconstrictions or narrowing of the bronchi of the airways, which can lead to blockage of the airways and increase in mucus production. These all points which can block the airflow and cause the asthma attack. Also, rapid breathing can also cause the bronchoconstriction, which can cause asthma attacks. So during these attacks, short-acting beta-agonists act as a rescue inhaler against these asthmatic attacks, which can be lifesaver for asthmatic patients. As I already discussed, these short-acting beta-agonists relax the smooth muscles and decrease the mucus production, cause bronchodilation, which can lead to adequate airflow to the lungs, decreasing preventing asthmatic attacks. With understanding of exercise-induced asthma, you will got to know that dust mites, exercise, pet dandruff can cause asthma. So these all three options can cause asthma, and the remaining option is hypertension. So the right option will be a hypertension. So asthma is not triggered by hypertension. Which of these medications are used to quick relief for acute asthma attack? And your options are: first one, inhaled corticosteroids; second one, long-acting beta agonists; third one, short-acting beta agonists; fourth one, leukotriene modifiers. As we already discussed in this video, that short-acting beta agonists act as a rescue inhaler for asthma by providing quick relief for asthmatic attacks within minutes. So the right option is short-acting beta agonists. Inhaled corticosteroids are anti-inflammatory drugs which are not used during asthma attacks. Long-acting beta agonists are also same as short-acting beta agonists, but short agonists works very fast as compared to long-acting beta agonists. So the asthmatic patient's main treatment is administering long-acting beta agonists, including inhaled corticosteroids. Even the patient has already taken long-acting beta agonists, there will be the risk of asthma attacks because this long-term medication does not completely treat the asthma because asthma is not curable. Asthma is only manageable. So these drugs only manage the symptoms but not completely treat the condition. So our next question is, that is fourth one. What is the purpose of using a peak flow meter in asthma management? First option is to measure blood oxygen levels. Second option is to monitor lung function by measuring peak expiratory flow rate. Third option is to administer asthma medications. Fourth option, to diagnose asthma. Second one, that is to monitor lung function by measuring expiratory flow rate. Peak flow meter is an device which is used to control the asthma. Peak flow meter is a device which is used to evaluate or assess the effectiveness of the drugs against asthma. How well asthmatic medications are working on asthmatic patients, is their symptoms are relieved or not. So to assess these all things, peak flow meter is used. Peak flow meter also indicates the severity of the asthma, how much severe asthma is in that patient's asthmatic symptoms are improved or not. Actually, peak flow meter assesses how well your lungs are functioning, how much air is expelled out after inhaling deep breathing, how much air is expelled out. By measuring that air expelled out, we can say that how lungs are working. To use peak flow meter, patient should take a deep breath and should keep flow meter in their mouth and should blow the air in it or expel the air forcefully and completely as possible by the patient. After blowing the air, peak flow meter will give you a number or measurement of how much air is expelled out within a given time. That indicates how well your lungs are working, which can indicate the severity of asthmatic symptoms. So this is all about the peak flow meter. So now let's move to the next question. Next question is, what is the main purpose of long-term asthma control medications? First option is to reduce immediate relief of symptoms. Second option, to cure asthma. Third option, to reduce inflammation and prevent complications. Fourth option is to treat asthmatic attacks. Right option is to reduce airway inflammation and prevent symptoms and manage the asthmatic symptoms. Long-term asthma control medications are LABS, that is long-acting beta agonists, and corticosteroid. Long-acting beta agonists are slow and effectiveness as compared to short-acting beta agonists, which provides immediate relief against asthmatic attack. Even though patients take these drugs, there will be a risk of asthmatic attacks because due to hyperexpansiveness of airways, as soon patient is exposed to irritants, due to hyperexpansiveness of the airways, that can react with irritants and lead to inflammatory response, and that inflammatory response can narrow the airways, which can lead to asthmatic attacks. So to reduce that asthmatic attacks, we need to use short-term beta agonists, which are effective only for short-term and gives immediate relief and acts as a lifesaver drug during asthmatic attacks. Okay, so now let's move to the next question. So this is the last question, that is, what is the potential side effects of long-term use of high doses of inhaled corticosteroids? And your options are, first one, weight gain. Second one, bronchoconstriction. Third one, increase heart rate. Fourth one, osteoporosis. And the right option is osteoporosis. What is osteoporosis? Osteoporosis is a bone condition in which there will be a weakening of the bone and decreased bone density, which can lead to bone fracture. So osteoporosis is a bone condition characterized by weakened bones and decreased bone density, which can lead to bone fractures. And why this osteoporosis happens? So now let's study over that. Osteoporosis is a bone condition that happens. First one is imbalance in bone remodeling. As you know, bone gets remodeling constantly. Bones gets broken down and rebuilt. Bone gets break down to remove old and damaged bone tissue from the bones and rebuild it with a new healthy bone tissue. That's why there will be a breaking and rebuilding of bone cells, bone tissues. So there will be balance between breakdown of bones and rebuilding of bones to maintain homeostasis, and not only to remove old and damaged bone tissue, and also to maintain calcium levels in the blood. When there is a decreased calcium levels low in the blood, body breaks the bones and take the calcium and increase the calcium level to the normal level in the bloodstream, so that there should be maintained homeostasis. So this is a normal process. So when there is an imbalance between breaking down and rebuilding of bones, osteoporosis can occur. As when there is a breakdown of bones is increased and rebuilding of bones is reduced, that imbalance can cause the overall excessive breakdown of bones tissue, decreasing bones density and increasing the pores of the bones. and make that bones fragile, that is easily breakable, ultimately causes the bone very weak in such a way that even with exposed to smaller mechanical stress, that can lead to bone fracture. So this is all about the osteoporosis. So now So this is all about the bone fractures. So don't forget to share this video with your friends and subscribe our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.